Napoleon Hill wrote about the power of masterminds in his famous book, Think and Grow Rich. The idea of a few people coming together to discuss their problems and find solutions has proven to be a powerful source. Yet so many leaders do not seek to utilize this incredible resource, which leaves so much potential untapped. Today, my guests, Ronan and Leonard, and I discuss topics such as what a sinking ship has taught him about leadership, what masterminds are, why leaders should join a mastermind, how to establish one, what to look for if you're interested in joining one, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast, episode 119, The Power of Masterminds with Ronan, Leonard. Welcome one, welcome all to the Moving Forward Leadership Podcast. It's so great to have you. And if you're new to the podcast, this is a show where we focus on the three domains of leadership, and that is leading yourself, leading your people, and leading your organization. Why? So that you can be the best leader that you can be, so that you can build those relationships you need to leverage within your team. And finally, so that you can increase that output from your organization, whatever that output is. It's so great to have you here. I, as your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, I go out and hunt down world-class guests like Ronan today to bring you all the tools, the tips, and advice that is needed for you to navigate this leadership crazy world that is out there. And if you want more, just feel free to go to movingforwardleadership.com to check out all of our resources and everything we have for you there. But let's talk about masterminds, shall we? Masterminds, such a powerful tool. I will tell you, I am part of Mastermind. I am part of a couple of different masterminds of different types, from business to personal development and everything in between. And these things work, folks. They work. They enable you to leverage the experience of others and enable you to help others at the same time. They're such a powerful tool. And when I saw Ronan's application to be a guest at Moving Forward Leadership, I had to have him on for these reasons, because I knew instantly that this was going to be a great show for you. And I will tell you, it was. We have a little side tangent right at the beginning of the episode. We talk about a sinking ship, and I thought it was just going to be a little quick, anecdote type thing. We'll just mention it and then move on. But no, there's actually a whole load of leadership lessons that come out from this incredible story of how Ronan survived a sinking ship and helped people live to this day. So you definitely want to listen to that story, but more importantly, you want to check him out. So who is Ronan Leonard anyway? Well, he's all about helping businesses, helping organizations establish masterminds and getting them to increase their authority, their impact, and basically help the people that they serve. So he's been doing this for quite some time. You will hear the experience coming out of him as he talks. And you know what? That's enough about me talking. So why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview talking about the power of masterminds with Ronan Leonard. Ronan, man, welcome to the show. It's so great to have an Aussie friend here on Moving Forward Leadership with me.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Really looking forward to it.
So today we're talking about masterminds, the importance of masterminds, the power of being behind a mastermind. And before we really dive into all of that good stuff, I'd like for you just to give the listener, a little sense of who you are, a bit about your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Thanks for that, Scott. I've actually had an anti-career. I've never deliberately kind of done anything. And in fact, I've done the opposite. I've just figured out, what I don't like, and then sort of quit those jobs. We try something. This is not for me. One of the things I've always done is I've looked and projected into the future. Do I see myself working here or doing this or what have you in 3-5 years time? And if the answer is no, it's a very quick way to go, actually, well, then I need to change sooner rather than later. Otherwise, I'll be entrenched, sort of stuck here. So I traveled the world for a decade. I worked on cruise ships, including one that sunk while I was on there. That was a fascinating experience that I often share some very funny anecdotes out of that, just because we all survived. And I actually saw it as a very life-affirming and positive part of my life. And then I set up a national events company here in Australia, which I ran for over a decade. Again, asked myself that same question: do I see myself doing this in 3-5 years' time? The answer was no. So I exited that. And then for the last 4 years, I've been involved in the mastermind space. And then also as a byproduct of that, we're actually doing some work around engagement of communities and also specifically organizations, and figuring out how we can help people really get connected to that. And it ties in partly to the masterminds, this idea that we can really create organizations that have a purpose and a belief bigger than themselves and create that bigger impact. But masterminds, fascinating way of ensuring that you are always relevant, you're always getting some nuances and some different perspectives and information than you could on your own. So that's why I just love the idea of a mastermind, because it's not static. It's not learning information rote or just from one person. It's harnessing everybody in that group to come up with better ideas and better solutions.
I'm really intrigued by the cruise ship story, but I think we're going to have to pass for right now. But you never know. It may come out. I just can't see a linkage of it between that and leadership, unless you got one quick.
Well, yes, leadership. So what happened was I was working in the gift shop then, one of the lowest paid people on the ship. And when we started to sink, all the senior officers and crew, the people that were in the leadership roles, actually abandoned us and left us to our fate. So we filled the first lifeboat with women and children. And on the other side, senior officers, staff captain, chief engineer, chief radio officer, not a single passenger, they all left in a boat and said, see you later. So the people that coordinated the rescue were people like me, gift shop. I'm talking people that were the magician, the cruise director, the band leader. These are the people that were on the bridge, were helping coordinate the rescue without any of those skills. So yeah, leadership comes from you stepping up and willing to say, what can I do to help? Doesn't always come from that top down, hey, I've got all the stripes on my shoulder, I'm really important. And then when something happened in a crisis, they abdicated their responsibility. So absolutely ties into leadership, Scott.
Wow. Holy smokes. I could just stop the interview right now. And that literally is an amazing story and episode. Holy cow. I'm blown away by the fact that you're telling me all the senior crew abandoned ship and left everybody to fend for themselves, because I come from a military background. I'm actually Army, but I do have a number of naval friends, and the captain is the last person off the ship, regardless. And in a scenario like that, that's where you have to step up. That's where, that's what you're being paid to do, is take care of people and get them to safety. So it absolutely blows my mind that all these key people would ditch the ship at such a crucial moment. But like you said, yourself and the magician and everyone else show true leadership and stepping up. So well done to you folks. Holy cow. I almost feel like hitting stop on record, but we have so much more to talk about, I feel like.
Yeah, let's keep going.
So, all right, cruise ship story aside now, first leadership lesson of the podcast, check. We're going to talk about masterminds and the importance of masterminds and all the great benefits that come from them. So, first off, I'd like for you to explain to the listener there, why are masterminds so important in the first place?
It's the idea of the collective. The original name has come from Napoleon Hill, which basically said from his book Think and Grow Rich, when two or more minds come together, they create this supermind, this mastermind. And it's the ability to see and come up with better ideas than you would on yourself. So for all of us, we only know what we know, right? We've only got a certain amount of experience, expertise, creativity of thinking differently, whether we bump up against that at some point. So the ability to collaborate with other people or to crowdsource your expertise, your experience, your brain power, and come up with a better idea than you would do individually is an incredibly powerful thing. So that's the definition of a mastermind in its loosest form. It's been co-opted. People have Facebook groups to say it's a mastermind. No, it's not. It's just you dumping information onto people in a one-way conversation where you say, this is what I do. So it really is truly the collaboration of a mastermind is coming together to solve this problem that you couldn't on your own, that you've got either a big, hairy, audacious goal or you've got something you want to achieve, and you collectively come together to, in some way, to help solve your problems collectively.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying, and fully will admit that I have a Facebook group which I've called the Moving Forward Leadership Mastermind for quite some time, and just only recently changed the name of it to Leadership Skills for Managers to Not Be Bosses, to reflect a little bit better of what it is. Just like you said, it's not necessarily really a mastermind, although people are there invited to come in and act like a mastermind. But what ends up happening is more me providing content to those folks that are in there partaking. Now, for the listeners, so you talk about what they are and why they're important. What benefits are they going to get out of joining a mastermind? Because a lot of them out there, the ones that you see often, there's a lot of money associated. Well, some people who facilitate these masterminds are charging some big bucks for you to be a member of it. I've been invited to a number of them, and you're talking high 3 to 4 figures easy to be part of these masterminds. So it can be a little bit scary, a little bit daunting, especially if you're a little bit financially not strapped, but tight. It can be a little bit scary and daunting at that moment. So I think what people don't necessarily understand is, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? So for the leader listening, what benefits are they going to see of being a part of that mastermind?
Good question. So there is the money really for the people that are running that is twofold. First of all, it's a screening indicator, is that if you can afford this much, you're going to be at this level of business, and therefore, if you had just one idea from that group, it would pay itself, back just from that. There's also this hidden benefit of the fact that you're connected with these groups of like-minded people that are your peers. You have potential for JVs, collaboration, you're expanding your network, all of those things. So you're inviting people to almost a little private exclusive club where all these people are hanging around at this level and this space, and they're thinking this way. So you're actually curating and putting that screening together so that you've got the right group of people in that space. So for anybody looking to join one, pick one that, financially is an indicator. Money is not always the best indicator of what's best for you, but it's certainly one of the key indicators of, okay, well, if I'm only paying $50 a month, I'm going to be hanging around with people that can probably only afford that, and therefore that's great if you're just starting out, but it's not the right fit for you as you're trying to scale up and spiral up. So picking that right one. Within there's the value proposition is that ability to get answers to the things that you don't see. So your limiting beliefs, your blind spots, all of the things that you are not aware of that you could go and start to research. You go on the internet. Well, what we're finding in the last sort of 20 years is that Bill Gates 25 years ago wrote a book called Content is King. Content is no longer king. It's now free. It's ubiquitous. It's being commoditized. What is really valuable is context, is the ability to understand an idea or anything and then go deeper with it. But how does that apply to me? What if I did this? Or I've tried that, or I'm in a different niche or industry, not sure how that works. And then someone to say, actually, have you thought about this? Oh no, I never thought of that. So your ability to solve those problems in that group environment where people come up with left field ideas, or they're using their experience, their knowledge, their intellect to solve a problem that you would struggle on your own with. So that's the collective of that. And when you look at the times we're in right now, we are facing massive uncertainty. We are facing massive changes to almost every single business, of how they do business, what it looks like. And right now, nobody can predict what it's going to look like on the other side. That's impossible to do. But what you can do is, if you've got a group of peers that are saying, okay, what does it look like at the other side of this COVID-19 issue? Where can we start to plan and take some action right now to ensure that our businesses coming out the other side are, first of all, at least alive? Let's not even talk about thriving. Let's talk about survive for many people. So your ability to start to brainstorm with other people in your niche or your industry that have got the similar problems and say, how can we come together and look at great solutions and ideas, rather than that leader trying to figure it all out themselves. And that's the power of it. It's a safe space for people to ask, what they would consider dumb questions, because right now the leaders are supposed to come up with all the answers, right? They're always supposed to be the person that knows. But where do they get that information from that allows them to pivot, to think differently, to solve all these problems? Do they sit there and go, oh, I've got to figure it all out myself? Or can they find a safe space to start to ask those questions, the dumb questions, the questions they don't know? And then when they come back and go, actually, I've got this really good idea. Didn't necessarily come up with my own. I came up with it in a collective environment, but this is where we should be taking the business. This is where we should be pivoting. This is where we should be changing some of the things. So it gives you that ability to do that in that safe space.
The top is the loneliest place. Colin Powell said that once. But it doesn't have to be. Instead, you can find people to talk to, people to run ideas by, people to help you figure out solutions to the problems that you're facing right now as a leader. And see, I felt alone once, and I decided to start the podcast. And with the podcast, I decided that I needed to help people like you more. So that's why I started the Pivot for Leadership Facebook group. Leadership skills for managers to be leaders, not bosses. You can find it at movingforleadership.com/group. And come join us. It's completely free for you to join us and talk leadership with us day in, day out. So check us out again at movingforleadership.com/group. Now back to the show. I really like that idea of basically you're taking advantage of the collective experience, right? And you're leveraging that for your scenario. And maybe that's that week, you're the one that's benefiting from it because you're showing up with the problem. And the following week, you show up and someone else has a problem where your experience can actually help them get through their problem. And you're making these connections. And that's one of the things that, to me, is so attracting to the mastermind, let alone just the benefits of growing and leveraging all that experience in the room and developing the skills at what I think is a much quicker rate, because you're no longer having to slog through Google. You're no longer having to slog through someone's semi-well put together online course or blog post or whatever. You're actually talking to people face to face, just like we are right now. Most of them are done via Zoom, just like we are right now.
Yeah.
But you're leveraging all that experience that's in that quote unquote room, and growing at such an exponential rate, and that's probably the biggest benefit I can help boast for you and support you. Is it's so quick, so fast, how great you get. And I think the other thing is you can get pushed too. You can get pushed pretty hard, and you can get held accountable. And that's such a key thing.
Yeah, ideas have a life of their own. They form, and the value of them is exponential. If you've got a great idea, it spreads virtually around the world. As you said, when you're in those masterminds, I've seen it time and time again. Somebody comes with that problem, and somebody that is talking about a solution or an idea, or have you thought of this, or what about that, whatever that looks like. And then there's a third person that I've seen in these rooms, they're furiously writing down, because it's giving value not just to that one person of the problem, but the two or three other people in the room going, I'd never thought of that either, or I've got a similar problem. So when you're working, and that's what I talked about earlier about creating those groups that are the right fit and the right level, I guarantee that right now, everybody's got similar pain points and problems around what does my business look like in 90 days, 120 days, 360 days when we come out the other side of this. So the ability to work with people collectively and say, none of us have really got the answer. We don't really know, but together, if we can start to figure these things out, we're going to come up with better solutions, better ideas than we ever would just sat there on our own as we're trying to manage all of this shift in sand and what that looks like. So absolutely, yeah, the collective, incredibly powerful.
That's awesome. So, we're talking to a leader, and my audience, these are go-getters. These are people who are chomping at the bit to develop themselves, become better leaders. That's why they're here. They don't want to be that quote-unquote boss. And they're saying, you know what, this mastermind thing, yes, this is the next level for me, because maybe my boss at work is just not mentoring me the way they're supposed to be mentoring me. Maybe my boss just can't. Maybe maybe I am the boss, but at the same time, I need to find a way to develop myself, whatever. Like, maybe this mastermind is the right fit for me. Maybe this will help me get over the hump. But I don't know a good one from a bad one. I don't know how to figure out which one is right for me and which one's wrong for me. Do you have any advice for that leader to determine, what would be the best mastermind for them?
In some ways, it's a little bit like buying anything, coaching, anything that has an intangible thing attached to it. When you buy a car, you instantly kind of know what you're getting, right? When you're buying a service, and people will know this if they're selling a service, there's an intangible part to that. So it can be quite tricky to figure out, is that intangible, that value, good for me? A couple of key indicators is you really want to be looking at, and I talked about this, people at a similar level to you. If you've got a common problem they're coming to solve, that helps as well, that it's not just a talk fest and everybody's got different agendas and different outcomes to that. So the more you can hone in on potentially, there's two benefits. One, industry specific means that you're potentially all in the same bubble. You've all got the same ideas. You all read the same blogs. You all read the same books. So you all kind of think too closely together. There's that group think. So it's a balancing act between that and finding that the disparity of the group is so wide that you get no benefit out of that, both top down and top up. So in some instances, you've kind of got to suck it and see. You really don't know. It might look great on paper. The marketing for some of these masterminds are great, and you get in and find that it's not particularly good. One option is to start one yourself. If you are somebody that you talked about your audience being go-getters and really good, I guarantee that almost anybody can look at their network and say, I'm pretty sure I know 5 or 6 people that I could get together and we could start to work on this and just see what that looks like. That's a free one right there. It doesn't cost you anything other than the time of organizing it and saying, this is the structure, this is what we want to achieve. We're going to meet on this day via Zoom. Let's trial it for 6 weeks or 6 sessions, 4 sessions, and just see what that looks like and find out the value proposition and find out the dynamics within the group.
Let's go with that last one. I want to pull on that thread. So, how can leaders, obviously beyond what you just said, i.e., saying finding a handful of people which they're linked with, whatever. But how can leaders actually go about setting up a mastermind? Because that can be daunting, even as a go-getter. This could be something completely new. It makes sense, for them to set up a mastermind. But how do they go about it? What are the key elements of a good mastermind? Because the listener does not want, they don't want to set up something poor. That's not in their blood neither. So, what are the good elements that for them that they need to consider when setting it up, and how do they go about setting up a mastermind for success?
One of the things I've always taught and I teach this in my mastermind is that if you can attach a big promise and an outcome to it, everything else kind of falls in place. We know that great organizations often have a mission and a purpose that's bigger than themselves. And when they clearly articulate that people automatically gravitate towards that. So I teach this thing called the big promise. If you say at the end of the 6 weeks, you will get this outcome, you will have a roadmap for what your business will look like on the other side of COVID-19. So everybody that's interested in that, hey, that sounds exactly like me. People will self-select. So if you have and this ties into, again, the Napoleon Hill talks about solving problems that are bigger than themselves, or that you have something that is a shared collective. And it's why people join Facebook groups. It's why people gravitate in anything to when they come together, is that they see a sense of purpose, and they see and you can tie that to an outcome, and that's defined. People understand this is for me or this is not for me. They self-select. So if you do that, almost everything else falls in place. The semantics around how often do you meet and what is that at the time and all those, they're all just fluff. If you've got a core strong message that we can solve this problem in this amount of time, this is what it looks like coming out the other side, people will self-select and go, yeah, this is for me, this is of value, or not. So I think that's the core thing. If people are looking to set it up, and just test that. As I said, if you've got this big problem that you're facing, and people in your industry are facing, just reach out to people, say, for example, on LinkedIn or your network, and say, looking to solve this, is this of value to you? And again, people will self-select.
Now, that makes sense, and it's super easy. Find that common problem and see who's willing to participate. Now, what happens if you get 20, 50 people throwing their hands up? Is there a magic number where the mastermind should fall within? Is there a minimum number? Maybe only 2 or 3 people throw their hands up. Is that too little? What are your thoughts there?
Online, for me, it's the sweet spot's around about 6 people. So if you had a group of between 4 and 8, that's okay. Any lower than 4, you only need one person not to turn up, and then there's just 3 of you, or God forbid 2, and it's just then a two-way interaction. You're not really getting the true value. Big groups, there's no way you can involve people. A mastermind is a shared experience. It's not here's some content and I will deliver over the next hour. So if you've got 40, 50 people in a room, all you're really doing is talking to them. It's your ability to influence and to create that collaboration in those groups just doesn't happen. Interesting enough, I did see a couple of weeks ago when this lockdown first started that Seth Godin, through, I think it's Akimbo, they were offering a free thing for about a month where they put you all into these groups, and then it split them all off. You went into little random groups and met people within there, and then came back and shared some wisdom. And I think they had a couple of things around that. So you really, for that size group, if you've done really well and everyone's interested in that, put people into small groups, have a problem to solve potentially or an idea to discuss, come back then maybe, and then group together and say, this is what we found, and share that with everybody.
That's an interesting idea. Breaking basically into like breakout sessions, right? When kind of like when you have a conference or whatever, they often do breakout sessions. So instead of limiting, you can definitely break it out and make it into those 4 to 8 number of people within the groups. You mentioned something a little while ago, and that was it's not a content delivery platform. It's a basically a platform for people, a group of people to think. Now, what is your advice for people who are leading masterminds and they come across a scenario where someone is just not really participating? They're kind of just sitting in their consumer only mode, not really being forthcoming with any of their own advice or experience, just kind of sitting back and sucking everything dry, being that person like, oh, I have this problem, what do you guys think? I have this problem, what do you guys think? What's your advice for those scenarios?
I'm smiling, which you can't see on the podcast, because I've dealt with a few people like that as well. In some ways, you potentially need to cut them free, because you don't necessarily want that infecting the whole group. You want a group of people that have similar values, work ethic, whatever that looks like. The more you can create that group, the better, which is why the smaller ones work. just because you can do that. I mean, to me, you want people that can influence others, but really, real influence is just the ability to move people and create a genuine connection to something. That to me is influence. It's not necessarily I've got all the answers. We've seen a lot of social media influencers, but doesn't really create true connection. It's the ability to come together on something more meaningful than just superficial products or what have you that influencers do. So when you can start to tap into these people's shared sense of collective and what's important to them and find that tribe, then everything else happens from that. That's where real engagement happens, when you're asking more questions instead of just delivering content. When you involve people in their opinions and their values and their beliefs, that's when you create that real engagement. And if you structure it to ask more questions instead of just delivering more content, you'll find that people come up and surprise you with different ideas, different beliefs, and different perspectives that you never would have come up with on your own.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Sometimes, you know what, you get a net increase when you subtract, right? And when you have those people who are just essentially sucking the energy dry out of the group, they're never really beneficial. So it has to be the beneficial of the entire group. The last thing I'd like to hit on with Masterminds is the idea of bringing in Mastermind into an organization, whether that be the leader, company, internal company, their own company, their own organization, whatever. What are your thoughts there? Should leaders go about trying to set up these mastermind within their own organization? Is there some pitfalls associated with that, or is that a no-go, or is that a great idea? What are your thoughts there?
Look, I personally think it's an excellent idea. I don't know why more companies don't do them. And you don't even need to call it a mastermind per se, as long as you're operating on those same principles. The more you can include people, everybody in your organization, for what are we trying to achieve? What's our mission? What's our purpose? What are our values? What don't we see? And in fact, we work with a lot of organizations that have all these beliefs. Everything that they do or say comes down to a belief. Their culture is just a belief. There's a visible culture, which is what people is written down and what people say. And then a huge part of culture is the invisible culture, is what people believe, and it's hidden because it's not written down. This is what we believe, so it's done around here. So the more that leaders per se can incorporate as much of the organization around where do we want to go, what would this look like, and engage people, you get greater alignment, greater trust. You get the ideas that you hadn't thought of before. So I think it's incredibly valuable. When you talked earlier about the size of the group, you reminded me that I read a great book by Pixar co-founder Ed Catmull, who co-founded that with Steve Jobs. And they talked about Pixar, incredibly successful organization, right? Did so many things right. But then they reached this point where they were looking to change the organization, save some costs, and a few other things happened. And they created all these, what I would call mini mastermind, these breakout groups. And they aligned them not through the silo effect as, okay, you're all in animation, you should all be in this one. You're in finance, you should be in this. They just said, these are the topics that we're going to create. If this is of interest to you, join that group. And they came out with, by harnessing everybody within the organization, they came out with all the ideas and all the strategies and everything they ever would need to move their company forward, instead of paying an external consultant, hundreds of thousands of dollars to say, this is what we think. But not only that, they got all the buy-in, they got the alignment. People were genuinely connected to that, A, because they were a great company to work for. But secondly, they had a voice in the room. They had input to that. They had a genuine interest in that. So that is the power of something like a mastermind in an organization that can really drive your results and everything, because you're engaging everybody in that organization rather than it being a top down. We've got all the answers. This is what we're doing. Let's just push that down the organization, and everybody just buys into that.
That's such a great example. Like, wow, you hit a grand slam on your first at bat with the whole sinking of a cruise ship story, and now you bring in the Pixar example to do another one to basically start to wrap the show up. So, Ronan, man, this has been fantastic. A lot of great information in here. So much value added, and a lot of things for the leader to think about going forward. Before we wind down, I do have a last couple questions for you. And the first one being a question I ask all the guests here at Moving Forward Leadership, and that is, according to you, Ronan and Leonard, what makes a great leader?
I would say that it's the ability to empower others. To me, leadership is nothing more than you getting the best out of other people. So that, to me, is a good leader. If you have that skill set where you're able to elevate other people, that's what true leadership is. Simple,
to the point, yet extremely effective. So good. Final thing is, how can people find you? How can they follow you? Feel free to give yourself a shameless plug. It's all about you right now.
I'm on LinkedIn as Ronan Leonard, and also the company that I co-founded with the guy in the US is called Transform.io, which is TRNS form, FORM.io, and you can find us there. We're producing some insightful content just around this space, and just around true engagement and the ability to connect with either internally your employees or externally with your customers.
Awesome. For the listeners, always, it's easy for you. Just go to movingforwardleadership.com/119, and the links are all in the show notes for you. Ronan, man, again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking about your expertise. Thanks for sharing that incredible story. That just blew my mind. I think that's your first of someone being on a sinking ship of any type on the show, or at least talked about it. And I even had a world record holder in rowing on a previous episode. So well done to you. But most importantly, though, all not joking, but joking aside, thanks for coming out and taking your time to talk to the audience today.
Scott, thanks for having the show. I just think there's never been a more important time to talk about leadership, what that looks like, and how that impacts so many people, because we are in very uncertain times. So your show is as valuable right now as it's ever been, if not more so.
Oh, well, thanks. All right, that's all I got for you fine folks today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And most importantly, I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, remember, R squared, S squared, right? Rate and review the show so that it gets a little bit noticed, a bit more. But most importantly, I can help more people, because that's what I'm here for. That's what my guests are here for, is to help more people become better leaders and not being bosses, right? So remember that. R squared, rate and review. S, share the show. Share this show with someone who you think can relate to the podcast as a whole and today's topic. And then finally, subscribe. Subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And you can do that via your podcast playing app of choice through movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, stop bossing and start leading. Take care now.